Okay, I will call to order the Haywood County Board of Commissioners meeting for October 2nd, 2017. Ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Patrick Womack, he's the chaplain for the Sheriff's Office, to come forward and give us our invocation this morning.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps we might have a moment of silence in the wake of this shooting tragedy in Las Vegas. Lord, have mercy. As our hearts are broken for those who have lost loved ones in this shooting tragedy, we ask you, O God, to be merciful to us and deliver us from this evil madness that would have innocent lives taken in such a violent way. And Lord, as we lift up our hearts on behalf of those, we pray also for others who are suffering in the wake of the tragedies of storms, earthquakes, and fires. We ask you, Lord, to please grant these your servants who serve on this Board of Commissioners wisdom and discernment to make good decisions on behalf of all of us. But Father, we also pray your blessing on the citizens of this county, that we each may exercise our responsibilities with the understanding to know that liberty and freedom are a privilege, not the right to do as we choose, but to please to do what is right. We pray in your name. Amen.
Okay, next is our public comment session. And as always, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We have one person signed up this morning, and after Mr. Ramey speaks, and if anyone else wants to come forward to speak, please feel free to do so. Okay, so Terry?
Yes, sir. I come up here a couple years ago 2 or 3 times on the same situation, but I know that y'all have not got direct oversight in this situation, but I would like for you just to look at some paperwork I've got here, and I had yesterday on Facebook, I got about 35, 40 people that had the same issue. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, they came around from a Juneau sanitary district and put in what they call electronic meters, where they don't have to go out and read them. They can read them from the office. Well, the girl that came out and put my meter in told me, I went out and told her, I said, well, I'm glad you're putting these electronic meters in, because I said, we're having a lot of problem with excessive water bills. She said, I have had my ears burn off. She said, everywhere I put meter in, I am getting cussed out. I said, why? She said, because one month people will have a $40 water bill, and the next month they'll have a $300 water bill. Well, I said, I used to have that same problem. And I said, I went to the commissioner. The commissioners don't have direct oversight over Juneau. And the girl told me, said, well, this is going to stop it. She said, if there's a leak or anything goes wrong, it'll set alarm off at Juneau. If they ignore it, it'll set alarm off and we will see it. I said, that's a good thing. So my water bill went down to $60. All right, now this month I get a water bill and they tell me it's from August to September, $664. 34,500 gallons. Juneau says, you've got a leak, it's leaking into the ground, it won't come to the top. The building is on top of the hill, the water meter is at the bottom, and I cut the water off inside the shop. I cut the water off, completely cuts the water off, and the meter's still moving. But there's no problem. There's nothing I can do to hear them tell it but pay it. And you can't go down there and talk to them because they don't want to talk about it. So I put it on Facebook if there was anybody else had a problem. One lady lives by herself, $160 at the same time period. Conveniently, it was $60 until it comes up to this, and the last one before the electronic meter, $660-some. And then one lady puts on there that she replaced over 1,000 feet of water line, and Mac Wiggins apparently has put it in or had something to do with it because he put on there that there was not one wet spot anywhere where that line was at. But I know y'all don't have direct oversight on that, but we've got enough people together, we would like to know how we can get this took back. The last time when we found out toward the end that Waynesville can take this Universal Sanitary back over if there's enough problems. And I think there's enough people that would be interested in seeing what that process would consist of. And if y'all could help us with that, just tell us what the process is or whatever, because we have no recourse other than pay these big outrageous bills. Because they're saying the sewer is right beside the water. We opened the sewer, there's no water running through the sewer. So they're telling me there's 30 gallons an hour going somewhere. It's not going through the sewer, and there's not a wet spot nowhere. So if you could help us with that process or anything, we'd appreciate it, because I'm pretty sure by the next meeting there'll be a bunch of people up here to ask for that, if y'all can do that. I know you don't have no direct oversight on them, but if y'all can give us some kind of insight about how to go about getting it, Wayne, for take back over it, I believe that would be a great help. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ramey. Would anyone else like to come forward this morning during public comment? And Mr. Ramey, you are correct. The Juneau-Osaka Sanitary District is a sanitary district set up by the statute, separate and apart from the county. They do have meetings, though, and they do have public meetings that you can go to.
Call the sheriff's department if you ask about anything.
Well, I know they have to have public meetings. Also, we'll have Chip. Well, Chip's not here. Where's Chip?
He was dealing with a family situation this morning. He called us.
Okay. Maybe if we could have Chip call Bert Smith.
We can do that.
Talk to him about this. Bert's their attorney. Okay, if there's no one else speaking in public comment, next we'll move to constituent concerns. Mike?
None today.
Have any? Have any, Brad? I had a lady speak to me about the gravel being on Jones Cove Road at the construction of the animal shelter. She said she had a flat tire or ran over the gravel and had a flat tire, but she also said she spoke with someone at the convenience center and they helped her fix her tire, and then I think they're going back out there now and cleaning that up. So, but if we could just make sure that the contractor on site there keeps the road cleaned up. It has that large gravel, the large construction gravel they put on there. But she said it was handled for her. Okay, if there's no other constituent concerns, we'll go to administrative agency reports, which we don't have any. Discussion and adjustment of agenda. Does anyone have any adjustments that should be made to the agenda this morning? All right, if not, we'll move to the consent agenda. First item is request approval of the September 18th, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Anyone have any changes, corrections to those minutes? Okay, if not, we'll move to request approval of budget amendment. We have Julie Davis here. Julie, if you'll come forward and tell us about this budget amendment.
Good morning. I have one budget amendment for you. This is for the sheriff's office. There was $2,470 collected, actually, this year, and a little bit that was carryover from the prior year that has been designated by those who gave to be used for specific purposes at the sheriff's office. So we're appropriating those funds so that he can use them for what he needs to in his office.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions of Julie? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. And Mr. Upton is not here this morning. He had a doctor's appointment that he had a difficult time scheduling, and so he may be here a little bit later. Next is we don't have any old business. Next matter is new business. And first item of new business is to request approval to build a 5,300 square foot modular building on Haywood County property leased by the Haywood Pathway Center to provide emergency shelter and short-term housing for homeless women and children at a cost of $625,000 to be paid for from fundraising campaigns and potential grant monies. Mandy Haithcox, who is the executive director, is with us this morning. Good morning, Mandy.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for having us here today. Our staff and our residents and our board members who are here are appreciative of your time. We are here, as was stated, to seek a request for you all to approve that we build a two-story, 5,300 square foot building on the property that we currently lease from the community so that we can provide emergency shelter and short-term housing for homeless women and children. We became operational in 2014 in November after the Haywood County government, the Sheriff's Office, churches, and Pathways partnered together to create a solution to a community issue. Since that time, Pathways has continued to provide emergency shelter and short-term housing for homeless men and women, and we remain the only emergency shelter option in the county. You may have to do that. So,
Yes,
technical
okay.
difficulty.
Technical difficulty.
There. Over the years, the face of what homelessness looks like has changed. So while most people still think of pictures like this when they think of those who are homeless, the reality is that 40 to 50% of the national homeless population is comprised of families. This is also true in Haywood County, where according to the point-in-time counts for 2016 and 17, 40 to 43% of the counted homeless folks were families. In America, the average homeless family consists of a single mom with 2 young kids, and on average, 1 in 30 children across the country are homeless. That's 1 child in every single classroom, which amounts to about 2.5 million children. We know that in Haywood County, we have 300 children who've been identified in our schools as homeless, and this is a huge number in and of itself, but it doesn't include the unaccounted for homeless children who are under the age of 5. And nationally, half of the children who are homeless are in that age bracket. So how does this happen? There's a variety of reasons that people become homeless. These here are some of the most common. At Pathways, our top 3 reasons in the last month included unemployment, release from incarceration, and substance abuse issues. And for us, this speaks to 2 different points. The first is that at the inception of Pathways, one of the main purposes was to work closely with the Sheriff's Department to reduce recidivism in Haywood County. So as of June 30th of this year, of those who exited the Haywood County Detention Center in 2016 and then sought services at Pathways post-release, 47% of men and 68% of women have not been readmitted to the detention facility. The second point is that it's clear that there's many reasons that people can become homeless, and they're often interconnected cycles that cause a person or a family to become homeless. More often than not, homeless is a much more complicated issue than we realize. So having a safe and stable place to land, even if just for the short term, allows people the chance to break cycles and build a new foundation. For families, especially those headed by single moms, we can't forget the impact of trauma and specifically domestic violence. So when we know that 90% of homeless moms report that they've experienced physical and/or sexual abuse in their lifetimes, and we see that there's a strong correlation between the experience of trauma and becoming homeless. So all of these moms obviously have children, and so it's likely that they too have experienced trauma. The cycle of trauma and all of the other interconnected cycles that contribute to homelessness then potentially move to be generational cycles. And so we as a community have an opportunity to break some of those patterns. One of the biggest reasons that it's difficult to exit homelessness is the lack of affordable housing, which I know you are all well aware of. And we know that you are working very hard on that, and we applaud your commitment to that. In the meantime, with the closing of the lodge, which functioned as emergency shelter and short-term housing for the 75 families that Pathways assisted in 2016, the community's been extremely limited in its ability to care for homeless families. So knowing that we have 300 homeless children in Haywood County, in addition to any homeless children under the age of 5 that are not accounted for, Pathways determined that expanding current shelter services to include families, specifically women and children, was unquestionably and absolutely necessary, and it was the future direction of our organization. So in Haywood County, Pathways does emergency shelter. Our goal is to bring people in and help them to stabilize their crisis by providing for basic human needs: safe shelter, food, access to clothing, and the space just to take a breath, allowing people to move out of survival mode. If we can be the entry point, then we can work with people to help them get to the place that they're ready for the next step. So for some, that is transitional housing. For others, it's permanent. Our goal is to be an active and integral part of the continuum of care within our community so that we can effectively break cycles and build foundations. Through the combined efforts of county government, community organizations, and the faith community, we have a real opportunity to change the future of Haywood County, particularly for some of our most youngest members. So as I mentioned earlier, we're here to request the approval from you all to build a structure on the property that we currently lease to provide emergency shelter for men and women. So here is a depiction of the proposed building. So as you can see, it's 2 stories with identical floor plans on each story. There are 10 rooms of varying sizes, which would allow us to house larger and smaller families. There's a communal living area, kitchenette, laundry facilities, and a dedicated children's space on each floor. There's an office also for a case manager who will be on staff and dedicated just to the case management for families. And we will have a secure reception area that it will be staffed 24/7 to be sure it's safe for them. Meals will be provided through our already existing kitchen at Pathways. After looking at several options, which included a bed and breakfast model, purchasing a hotel and revamping it for appropriate use, and having community scattered site like single wide trailers, we felt that this option was the not only the best and fastest, but also the wisest use of dollars. So for the $625,000, we can impact up to 10 families at a time for up to 6 months each, over and over and over again. The total cost, as we just said, was $625,000, and so at this time, we are in possession of approximately a quarter of that funding, and we intend to raise money through a fundraising campaign in addition to submitting applications for pertinent grant monies. And historically, the Haywood community at large has been extremely generous with Pathways projects, and we have every reason to believe they will support this one as well. In July of this year, Pathways was able to realize its goal of hiring an experienced and qualified full-time case manager. So with the addition of this filled position, we can confidently say that we are no longer just a shelter, but we are a program that effectively helps our residents realize their goals. We have residents obtaining good jobs, most of them full-time, with an hourly average wage of almost $11 an hour. We have residents finding housing and reuniting with family. We have residents making progress on their sobriety and their recovery. And most importantly, we have residents who are actively breaking cycles and working on new and stable foundations. We intend to engage moms in those same programs, of course, looking at the needs of kids involved in that as well. We believe we can't do any of this without a partnership with both the county and the community. And so we just want to say thank you for your time this morning. We would not be here before you if we didn't have your support thus far. And so we respectfully request your approval to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Mandy, just stay up there. The commissioners might have a few questions.
Sure.
Do you have any questions?
I don't. I just wanted to help them clarify. Y'all have spoken with the town of Waynesville, and they seem to think that this will work
Yes.
in that area. That's probably the main thing, just making sure that,
Yeah.
you know, because you're in their jurisdiction, so we got to make sure that the setbacks and everything like that'll work, so.
Yeah.
Brandy, you have a question? I don't have any question. Mandy, when you talked about the 300 homeless, you know, the definition of homeless is such that it could also include someone staying at a grandmother's house who doesn't have their primary residence. Out of those 300, and these are children, right? I mean, what is the percent that actually has no place to stay? Is that
don't know
part of that
that.
300?
Probably, yes. So for the McKinney-Vento Act, which is through the schools to identify the homeless kids, it can include couch surfing, but it can also include people who are living in their cars, who are camping, who are staying outside.
Okay, but we really, do we know who
I
the
don't.
ones are that are camping and staying in their car as opposed to those that we characterize as homeless who actually have a place to go to?
I will say, I don't know the number. I will say that every day we receive at least 1 to 2 calls of people who have nowhere to go. And I know part of what's happening with emergency shelter right now is there's one hotel has agreed to be helpful and reduce the price and hold some rooms. But then when those rooms are filled, you know, there's nowhere for those families to go on the weekends. There's some families who are going out and camping. We spoke to a family the other day who they're living in their car until who knows when. So I don't know the number. I know that we get called every day with different requests for that.
What are you doing with the families that stayed at the lodge? I know you have the one hotel, but do the rest of them you just say we don't have any place for you? Okay.
Yeah.
The transitional, I noticed on your diagram, you had transitional housing and permanent housing. What is the plan for that?
So the reason for those houses is to show that we are part of a community, right? So if Pathways can be really good at emergency shelter, then we can help people be ready to move into transitional shelter or housing, which at this point is being developed by the EACH initiative. And so that would have houses for families for another 1 to 2 years with the support of a congregation. And then folks would be ready to move into permanent housing, which, in my opinion, if you're going to have Pathways and then EACH and then, say, Mountain Projects or Habitat for Humanity, if over the course of that time a family moves from living in their car to being in their own house, we've been able to affect a great amount of change. So we would not be taking on transitional and permanent. We'd be partnering with other agencies in the community who did that.
The women and children that will be staying in this facility, it is just women and children, right? What is the age of the children? Because I assume children includes male and female. So what age do you say, okay,
Yeah.
you can't be a male of this age to be
Correct.
in this facility?
We haven't made a true distinction at this point yet. I think that's a board decision for when we get further on. I've worked in places where they've done both. So there's been places where you can't have any boys who are ages 12 and older because it's community living and there's shared bathrooms and all these things. And there's also been places where because each family has their own room and bathroom, you can take older kids. So that's a decision that the board is going to have to decide
How is
upon.
this one designed?
This has both. So there's 2 rooms that have a private bathroom, and then there are the other 8 that have shared bathrooms between 2 rooms, so Jack and Jill bathrooms. And the reason we decided to do that was because it's cost-effective, one, but then also if we have larger families, so like the mom who called last week with 6 kids, we have the potential to have them all in the same place.
And what about the security?
So we are planning to have a security system specifically for that building, something in the idea of like a key card. So if you have, like you would at a hotel. So if someone wants to come in, they have to have that key card. When you walk into the building, there's a case manager office and then a secure reception. So there's one door into the building in general, and then there's one door into the living facility, and the stairs between the levels are inside of there. So you'd have to get clearance between 2 staff members to get into the building.
Okay. I know the sheriff is here, and I hadn't asked him to speak before, but could you, Sheriff, you mind coming up and could you just speak to the security around this area and if there is additional security provided? I know that, you know, some of the issues that we faced in the past about this particular area are the fact that there are, you know, people who've committed offenses before around in that area, and we've had complaints about that. So Could you tell us about the security, how this area would be secure as well as the whole Haywood Pathways campus?
First of all, the Pathways Center does have security on the ground, working from the hours of,
It's all the time.
so it's 24 hours a day now, there on the grounds. Also, the sheriff's office couldn't be any closer than we already are to that specific piece of property. One of the things that we've asked our deputies to do is, because we had gotten complaints about people that was in the area walking during the daytime whenever that they don't have anything to do that might be staying there, is to make sure that these people keep moving, that nobody's hanging out at somebody else's residence or at somebody's business, that sort of thing. So our deputies and Waynesville PD's been really good to help us as well. Is what they have done is we've just had these people keep moving. We have, and the Pathway Center has done a really good job in explaining that, hey, if you are done looking for a job that day, or you're done with whatever assignment that the case manager is giving you for the day, and you haven't found employment yet, then hey, you can't go and hang out at some of these places. So they have been very responsible for the people that they're responsible for. Of course, you know, unfortunately, there's sidewalks there, and many people in the community use those sidewalks. There's businesses there in the area that people just use the sidewalks, and of course, it looks very busy. It is getting to be a busier part of our town, and I'm glad to see that. And of course, now that some more eating establishments are coming in there, and of course, you know that Ingalls will be up and running again in a whole lot bigger capacity than ever before up there. So we're gonna continue to see people walking and using the sidewalks, but it's normally not people that are the clients at the Pathway Center that we're finding that is being part of the ones that you've heard the concerns about before.
And I just ask you that just to mainly so the public knows that certainly is the case, and that this is a safe environment.
It is, and you know, we had addressed the sex offender issue. There's no more sex offenders there on the property whatsoever, and they're not allowed to be part of the Pathways program now, and that just reaffirms this with the mothers and their children coming in. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Hate to put you on the spot, but I thought that'd be good for everyone to know. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mandy? Follow-up questions? And Mandy, you feel like if this is approved, and by the way, just want to make sure everyone knows this is not coming out of county money. This is money that you're raising.
Yes.
And you've already raised a quarter of it, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And this would be just placing a building on property that we have a long-term lease on, and then you all have a long-term lease on that
Correct.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, if you don't have any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Haywood Pathways Center request to build a 5,300 square foot modular building on Haywood County property, leased to them to provide emergency shelter for short-term housing for homeless women and children.
So moved. Second.
Okay, got it. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate all of you and the time you spend for that. It's a needed.
Kurt, just a comment there. It's bad that we've got a school sitting over here that's empty that could be used for some affordable housing. I don't know if that's something we might ought to look into or what y'all's thoughts are on that, but I know we've talked about doing a lot of things with that school, but seems to be a lot of rooms that would be available in there. Just a thought.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next, we'll move to request approval to submit a proposal for the use of Title III United States Forest Service funds in the amount of $61,108.36. We have Greg Shuping, our Emergency Services Director.
Good morning.
Morning.
Haywood County is in possession already of approximately $61,000 of funds, and it's called Title III U.S. Forest Service funds. But the apportionment that we do have at this time is we are supposed to submit a proposal to the U.S. Forest Service that's been approved by you as the commissioners to let them know that we're considering some programs that are available. Just a small breakdown of that is about $10,000 we'd like to intend to earmark for educational programs for fire-wise communities. And fire-wise is simply a term that is used whereby a community can pull together and discuss ways to avoid having tragic wildfire activity in their community. Another portion of the money would be used for projects in those communities to reduce wildfires there. So, for example, removing debris from around homes that might be flammable or combustible from around their structures or their road systems, or to install firefighting water points inside their community where an otherwise municipal water system might not be available. And then finally, $8,000 for some repeaters that we're installing on U.S. Forest Service property. As you know, we respond to many emergency services activities on federal property now, and installing these radio repeaters, antennas, and associated supplies would help us improve communications on federal lands where otherwise we don't have that kind of communications readily available. And then to help those repeaters work, to purchase some multi-band radios that would work with those repeaters that are installed on the federal property. And we're simply asking for your approval to submit this proposal to the U.S. Forest Service. If approved from you and by the Forest Service, we would expend these funds no later than September 30th of 2018.
Okay, Commissioners, have any questions of Greg?
Will you actually go out, you've probably identified some of these areas where they need some work, and so you go out and have some public meetings and try to get them involved, and then actually you've identified some areas, and it's closer to the federal land, so, and try to help those people.
Absolutely, and we have already met with several communities that are interested. And what we'd like to start with is advertising that we can come out and perform some educational opportunities for communities that are on the fringe areas of the federal lands, and then work with the Forest Service to do those educational programs, and then identify some activities that we could spend this small amount of funds to help them become safer.
The funds that have been provided, was there requirements on what it was designated for?
Yes, it has to be for educational and or mitigating strategies for fire-prone communities adjoining federal lands. And then it can also be used to reimburse communities like us that respond to and perform emergency services on federal lands, such as the fires. We had the Cold Mountain Fire, you'll recall, in January of this year. We also respond to, as you know, many search and rescues on these federal lands. So any activities emergency services might need to perform to respond on those lands, it is eligible.
And so if we don't utilize this and apply for this, then it just goes back to the feds, and we have to do this by September 30th.
It is. It would be de-obligated back to the U.S. Forest Service if we did not spend it.
Okay. And so it's not county money that we're appropriating?
No. No, sir.
Okay. You have any questions? Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposal for the use of Title III United States Forest Service funds in the amount of $61,108.36 as presented by Greg Shuping in the fashion set forth in the attachment.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, Greg. Next, we've got request approval of Haywood County property bids and offers to purchase initial offering for 36 Gibson Street in Canton. Ira Duff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, members of the public. Bringing for you, pursuant to the policy, a We received an offer on 36 Gibson Street in Canton. This was a property that was tax foreclosed back in 2013. It was placed at that time, my understanding is, on the website for about a 24-month period of time. There was not a lot of activity on the property. The requested bid, and this would be subject to upset bids, is $3,000. The tax assessor's office has reviewed this property, and someone went back out there subsequent to the time getting the bid to review the property again and confirm. The building value on the property is tax listed at $4,100. The land value is $12,600. The building is an old house. It is possible it would be a tear down. It would need, according to the tax appraisal office, extensive repairs. It's in very poor condition. And the bid, as I said, received was $3,000. The other thing you need to know is that this particular bidder, and I had checked with Chip, would not be a problem, happens to be a county employee, but you would need to know that going into this. So, but Chip said that anybody can bid because it is under the general statute, it's open to an upset bid process.
Commissioners, have any questions of Ira?
Okay, first of all, had we advertised this for bids, or, I mean?
Not in quite a while. When we initially took it in, my understanding is it was advertised downstairs in the tax office and on the web for a couple of years, but it has not been advertised in a while.
And, you know, of course, I'm a little bit unfamiliar with that, but how does that property lay? Is anybody?
I do have.
It's parceled up quite a bit right there. I mean, you ask Kevin, I mean, it's parceled. I mean, you're talking about .1703 acres, and then you can see all the adjacent parcels that can't be any more than that. Matter of fact, probably less than that. But this does have water and sewer.
Okay, is it
Yes.
relatively flat?
It lays pretty good. yeah.
Okay, and then the other question I had, I noticed that we had a little tag right here. It said fees were $5,639.
That's correct. We would be upside down in the property if it were to sell at the bid price.
Did we not do something earlier, or when we had a particular thing that we rejected one because it didn't at least cover the fees and costs that we had?
You have in the past. That was one that we had closer proximity to the time that it was received. This one, the county has had 4 years. But again, I felt that I needed to bring it before you all for discussion and guidance. But I mean, if you prefer, can take this and try and list it or something like that. If you prefer, you can reject the bid.
I'd like to see that. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think it'd be fair to only do that again, just to make sure.
You know, I mean, I just don't really know the property in the area very well, but it just seems like that, you know, we ought to try to at least cover our fees and costs to start with, although an upset bid might do that, but still it might not. Or go back to the person and say, this is what we got to have to start it.
Well, this is an offer, and we certainly don't have to accept it.
Correct.
And when I spoke with, Ira and I speak about the agenda, and those were some of my same concerns, is the fact that we have Haywood County properties out there, but we've not necessarily listed them for sale, or what kind of marketing has been done. And they're smaller properties, not larger properties, and so it was somewhat of a concern. This does have an upset bid on it, so if someone, if we approve the bid, someone could upset the bid, or we could just say, no, we can't accept this bid, and have it listed, or either say we want a minimum of what we've got in it. Unfortunately, there's probably some properties that we have X number of dollars in it that we're not going to achieve because the property's not worth it. I haven't personally viewed the home, but, if it's a tear down, then you've got that additional cost.
I do have some photos that were taken recently by the appraiser.
It also looks like in 2012, the land was purchased for $81,2689, is that correct?
It was purchased for significantly more, yes.
It's the county's tax, that's what we foreclosed on today. That was what was owed on it, and that's what we,
Right, it was actually, the property was actually valued at significantly more back in 2011, and by the time of, the foreclosure was 2013. When they reviewed the property after foreclosure, the property was lowered in value, and that was in 2015 because of the condition, when they finally looked at all of the conditional problems. And so the property value today stands, like I say, the land value, tax value is 16.7, and the building value out of that is 4,100 of it, so.
Think you could call those folks up that redo those houses on TV and get them to fix this one? Just for free?
I'll be happy to place any phone calls you like, sir. I don't know if I can get in compliance.
Okay, so,
I kind of wonder, if, being a surveyor, if the house is on the lot. Pretty close.
Be close, isn't it? Yeah.
It looks awful close. Just to
Yeah.
tell you the truth, it looks awful close.
Of course, it was built in 1930, you got some adverse possession going on, don't you, Kurt?
Yeah.
we can always figure out a way for that to be their property.
I'm probably
You
not.
know, it's just a matter of what, I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other. However you guys want to approach it's fine with me.
Well, I just really don't know the property very well and would like to have a little bit more insight, especially with taking a bid considerably lower than what we got. If the bid had come in about what we had, we've got in it, then I'm not so concerned about it. But so either that or reject the bid or put it on hold till the next time maybe we can have a chance to look at it.
What do you say, Kevin?
If we do accept a bid, how long do we give for an upset bid?
I think it's a 10-day upset bid period.
10 day?
You could upset it too.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, when it goes through the bid process.
We can?
You want to take that on?
Don't tempt me.
I don't know about that. That looks pretty rough. That was not so bad. Those other pictures, somebody's taking on a project, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
A big project.
The house looked like it was well built. I mean, it's got a fireplace and a chimney. It's been let go for sure, but they built them pretty good in 1930.
I do wonder what the history is
Can we
on
table
that house.
till,
Yeah, we don't have to decide today. If you want to
I'm
wait.
not prepared to make the decision.
We have put together a packet, is that correct, of the properties, and we're trying to get someone to list all of them at this point.
I've sent a letter out to it would be correct to say I've sent a letter out to the realtors to ask for someone to look to, on these tax foreclosures, to list the vacant land. We have several parcels, by several, most of the county-owned land is flood property. Wouldn't be listing that. But for the tax foreclosures, we have about 4 parcels that would lend themselves to putting out.
You said you are working on a packet now. All right,
I'm-
put that
I
together.
put out a letter and am requesting any realtors who put it out through the Real Estate Association. Lisa Brown forwarded to all the realtors to get prices and see who would work with us on that.
This property's not included in it, though.
This is not, it could be, like I say, whatever your pleasure is. Getting this bid kind of kicked off that conversation, and so kicked off saying, yeah, we do have a few here that we can look at.
Well, what about this, Commissioners? What about if we say, okay, we're not going to accept the 3,000, but we would be willing to accept the 5,639.34?
What would we counter?
Right.
I mean, if they've offered us something, we could counter back, I guess.
Still got to go 10-day upset bid, even if we counter back.
Yeah, and it's still, I mean, I think if we get what we, you
I
know.
mean, that's
the
what,
money-
if I had made an offer on this, I would be saying, well, what do y'all want, you know? So, I mean, I guess that's a conversation.
Well, it needs to go back. If they're willing to bid that, then we might be willing to go forward with it.
To bid 5,000?
It's 5, 6,
5,639, 34.
5, 56, 39,
So
34.
that's the fees and the cost? Okay.
Okay. So,
We would counter at that. Is that what y'all want to do?
so the direction is we're rejecting this bid, and I'm being instructed to go back and tell the bidder that, to bring back a bid of that amount and for y'all. Is that,
What about you, Brandon?
is that what the proposal is?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. We'd still have the 10-day allowable
There,
amount of time.
there
for
still would be the
upset.
10-day upset bid period. We have to do that on our properties.
And that's advertised in the newspaper.
That's
The-
correct.
the
That's
upset
correct. We do,
bid. So
we do
that-
advertise that.
Yes.
So everybody in the county's aware that reads the paper that, you know, has the
Okay. opportunity.
That's all I want to make sure, you know, is that if it is advertised, then I'm okay with doing what we're going to do here.
Yeah, I think if you guys are okay with the 5,639.34 and Ms. Presley wants to offer that, then that can be accepted, subject to the 10-day upset bid. And then also, I'm assuming all of the adjacent parcels are aware that this property's for sale. I mean, those are your most likely purchasers, but it didn't look like anything was
Look like you're vacant.
developed.
Most of the ones around it are not in such good shape. I mean, it's what I've been told, like right contiguous to it. They are not,
They're not
that's what I was
interested?
told when the appraiser went out there.
That you were told what, they weren't interested, or?
Not all of them, because you do have one property near it or two properties near it that are okay, but the three that are right there down the line, that there were not really solid structures that buy it. So it's not like someone would own a home and look to expand this direction onto this property, which is what you often get there. But we can check. I have not contacted them.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we counter with Ms. Presley, indicate to her that we would accept, subject to a 10-day upset bid period, the amount of $5,639.34 is the fees and costs that the county has in the property. Along with that motion would just be notification to the adjacent property owners that the property would be under contract, subject to that 10-day upset bid.
So moved.
Any discussion? Did you get that, Candy? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. Okay. And of course, if Ms. Presley doesn't come back, then I guess we'll know. The next bid we get on it might be $2,500.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, next is request approval of payment of $1,600 to the fairgrounds to cover operational costs of program provided by Evergreen to assist Haywood County school system. Ira?
Yes, that's pretty much exactly what we are hoping to do. We're looking for $1,600 to cover the operational costs, 4 days, the rental on one of the buildings there, so that Evergreen can provide a program to the Haywood County school system.
Okay. Commissioners, you have any comments on that? You have any comment on it?
It's a good program. It's a great program.
What's the program exactly?
It's Santa Pal.
Okay.
They put together Christmas boxes, and I think they take care of, how many kids? 200?
I don't remember the number right off, but it's quite a few. And it's not just the kids, it's some families as
Yeah.
well, so.
Well, and, you know, a little history or whatever is that the place that they used to be able to use is no longer available to them, and they have to be able to get big trucks in order to unload and repack and everything. And if they don't have a place like this and they ended up having to, you know, spend this kind of money, that's going to take away from the amount of help or supplies that they're providing for people.
It takes it away from the families, yeah.
It takes away from the family.
So, any way other people can donate to this, Kevin?
I think Evergreen employees, this is primarily from them, so
Okay.
if people want to contact me, I can give them a contact number. Yeah, sure, for sure.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the payment of $1,600 to the fairgrounds to cover operational costs of the program provided by Evergreen to assist Haywood County School System.
So move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, that looks like that's it for the open session. We've got a closed session. And I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A6 regarding personnel, and 143-318.11A3 regarding attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mike, second by Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and that passes. We are in closed session. Thank you, everybody, for attending this morning. Okay, we are back after closed session. Did we have anything? We didn't have anything in closed session to decide.
No, there was nothing to be decided at this session.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have anything for our open session meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.